So I wanted to start off this video by telling you that this is going to be my last video I'm making for a little while. I have a new baby on the way, and this is just a little bit too much work for me on top of homeschooling my boys and life coaching and my tennis addiction. Oh wait, you can't play tennis when you're pregnant, can you? Well, of course I'm kidding about the baby coming. I mean, I'm definitely crazy, but I am not insane. But I do want to share some fake news with you. In fact, it's the original fake news before fake news was even fake news. You know what I'm saying? Here are the top 12 best hoaxes throughout history. All of these elaborate hoaxes took place on April 1st throughout the world, which gives me hope that at least some people have a good sense of humor. Number 1. In 1957, a BBC News show called Panorama announced that thanks to a very mild winter and the virtual elimination of the dreaded spaghetti weevil, Swiss farmers were enjoying a bumper crop of spaghetti. Then they showed the footage of peasants pulling strands of spaghetti down from the trees. Phones were ringing off the hook. This is before the internet, don't forget. People wanted to know how they could grow their own spaghetti tree. And the BBC actually gave a response. Place a sprig of spaghetti inside a jar of tomato sauce and hope for the best. This broadcast remains by far the most popular and widely acclaimed April Fool's Day joke ever. The second hoax occurred in 1974 when the residents of Sitka, Alaska woke up to clouds of black smoke rising from the crater of Mount Edgecombe, a long dormant volcano. People were terrified that it was active again and it might soon erupt. Luckily, it turned out that it was man, not nature, responsible for that smoke. A local practical joker had flown hundreds of old tires into the volcano's center and lit them all on fire. This was a very successful attempt to fool the city people into believing that the volcano was actually stirring to life. Nice way to scare the crap out of people. This third hoax is my favorite. This occurred in 1978 in Sydney, Australia. A millionaire businessman had been loudly promoting his scheme to tow an iceberg from Antarctica to Australia. Now he apparently succeeded. A barge towing a giant iceberg slowly appeared in the harbor. He said that he was going to carve the iceberg into small ice cubes, which he would sell to the public for 10 cents each. These well-traveled cubes, fresh from the pure waters of Antarctica, were promised to improve the flavor of any drink that they cooled. Local radio stations provided blow-by-blow coverage of the scene, but then it started to rain. And the firefighting foam and shaving cream that the iceberg was actually made of washed away, uncovering the white plastic sheets beneath. Oops. So, the 70s seemed to be a fun-loving decade because yet another great hoax, my fourth one, came from that time period. In 1976, during an early morning interview on BBC Radio, the British astronomer Patrick Moore announced that at 9:47 a.m. that day, a once-in-a-lifetime astronomical event was going to occur. Pluto was going to pass behind Jupiter, and this planetary alignment would temporarily counteract and lessen the Earth's own gravity. So, if everyone jumped in the air at the exact moment this alignment occurred, they would experience a strange floating sensation. When 9:47 a.m. arrived, the station began receiving hundreds of phone calls from listeners claiming to have actually felt the sensation. Some people reported that they had even risen from their chairs and floated around the room. Yeah, okay. Maybe those people had the help of some hallucinogens before that happened? I don't know. So, moving on, what good hoax doesn't involve a UFO and space aliens? Number 5 does. In 1989, a UFO landed in London. Thousands of motorists driving on the highway outside of London looked up in the air to see a glowing flying saucer descending on their city. Many of them pulled over to watch the bizarre craft float through the air. The saucer finally landed in a field on the outskirts of London, and the police arrived on the scene. And one officer walked up to the craft, and the door opened, and a small, silver-suited figure emerged, and the policeman ran in the opposite direction. The saucer turned out to be a hot air balloon that was specially built to look like a UFO by Richard Branson, the chairman of Virgin Records. This stunt combined his passion for ballooning with his love of pranks. His plan was to actually land the craft in London's Hyde Park, but unfortunately the wind blew him off course and he got stuck in a field outside of London. You know, so many hoaxes involve food. In fact, number 6, 7, and 8 do, and you might remember some of these. In 1996, Taco Bell took out a full-page ad that appeared in 6 major newspapers announcing that it had bought the Liberty Bell and was renaming it the Taco Liberty Bell. People were pretty pissed off about this, and they called the National History Park in Philadelphia to express their outrage. A few hours later, Taco Bell announced their joke because it was creating quite a stir. People have to lighten up. Which brings me to number 7. In 1998, Burger King published a full-page ad in USA Today announcing the introduction of a new item to their menu, a left-handed Whopper. This burger was specifically designed for the 32 million left-handed Americans. According to the advertisement, the new Whopper included the same ingredients as the original Whopper, lettuce, tomato, hamburger, etc., but all the condiments were rotated 180 degrees for the benefit of their left-handed customers. And no joke, thousands of customers went into the restaurant requesting the sandwich. The following day, Burger King issued a follow-up release saying that the left-handed burger was a hoax, but left-handed products of various kinds are actually an old joke on April 1st, but Burger King's announcement quickly became by far the most famous version of the joke. Number 8 is a food hoax again, but this is no laughing matter since it involves eating unicorns. Who would even think of eating these mythical creatures? They're so magical and sparkly and endangered. Save the unicorns. In 2010, online retailer ThinkGeek announced an exciting new product, canned unicorn meat, which it described as the new white meat and an excellent source of sparkles. Now, the truth is, not many people believed that anyone was really selling unicorn meat, but the idea was so popular that a few months later, the company started selling the product for real. I mean, obviously not really unicorns. I mean, they're hard to catch and everything, but the customers who ordered the unicorn meat actually received a stuffed unicorn toy inside a can. So the number 9 hoax is pretty funny. In 1992, NPR Radio announced that Richard Nixon was running for president again. His new campaign slogan was, "I didn't do anything wrong, and I won't do it again." Accompanying this announcement were audio clips of Nixon delivering his candidacy speech. As you can imagine, people were flooding the show with calls expressing their shock and outrage. Only during the second half of the show did the host reveal that the announcement was actually a practical joke. And as another little tidbit of information, Nixon's voice was impersonated by comedian Rich Little. The number 10 greatest April Fool's Day hoax was flying penguins. In 2008, the BBC announced that camera crews filming near the Antarctic captured footage of penguins taking to air. It even offered a video clip of these flying penguins and explained that instead of huddling together to endure the Antarctic winter, these penguins took to the air and flew thousands of miles to the rainforests of South America, where they spent the winter basking in the tropical sun. Yeah, that's some pretty speedy penguin evolution happening between the years of 2007 and 2008. A follow-up video soon explained how the BBC created the special effects of the flying penguins and the April Fool's Day gag. Which brings me to number 11. In 1980, the BBC's overseas news service reported that Big Ben was going digital. I have to say, the BBC has a really good sense of humor. In order to keep up with the times, they were doing away with the hands of the clock. The segment even included people's nostalgic reminiscing about the world's most famous clock, such as anecdotes about the day it stopped and the time that it chimed 13 times instead of 12. And finally, they announced that the clock hands, which were no longer needed, would be given away to the first 4 callers. The BBC was shocked when it started to receive a massive volume of calls from listeners who were furious that Big Ben was going to be meddled with. Surprisingly, few people thought it was funny. The BBC had to spend several days apologizing to listeners for upsetting them. Can anybody take a joke? And lastly, number 12. In 1967, Swiss radio interrupted its regularly scheduled program with a news flash. US astronauts had just landed on the moon. For the next hour, listeners heard a series of elaborately staged updates, complete with reports from correspondents around the world and interviews with experts. Belief was widespread, and telephone lines were jammed, and even U.S. authorities in Switzerland, unsure of what to believe, began to celebrate. The broadcast concluded with the report that the moon ship would take off from the moon at 7 p.m., and listeners were told that they could see it return to Earth by watching from a high vantage point away from the city lights. In Zurich, this prompted a mass exodus of people out of the city up to a nearby mountain. And even the railroad had to add additional trains that night to handle the sudden rush of passengers. Sadly, everyone saw nothing, and it was another 2 years before US astronauts actually did land on the moon. Playing jokes on people is fun, as long as no one gets hurt. What's a fun April Fool's Day joke that you've played on someone? Tell me in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That's no joke. See you soon. Bye-bye.